everyone, welcome to this episode of Lifestyle Project. I am your host, David Didier. Welcome to the show. Like every week, I try to bring on an amazing guest who's currently living their dreams. Together, we go through where they've come from to where they are now, we talk about their journey, tips they've learned along the way, things that we can do to help you moving forward in your life. And today's guest is just one of those. Laura Steward she's got an amazing story. And this is a fun episode because we talk about questions. And I want you guys to think about this when you were kids, or if you've had a kid, you've gone through that stage where the why stage, right? Where everything's why. We're going to the grocery store. Where are we going? We're going to the grocery store. Well, why? Because we need food. Well, why? Why? And what do? We knock that out of their head. We tell them that we try everything we can to stop them from asking why. And so then they think all of a sudden asking why is a bad thing. It's a negative thing. So then they go through their life never asking why. And then they wake up 30 years down the road looking at themselves saying, why am I here? How did I get here? They end up that they're not happy. And the reason was they never asked themselves why. Why were they doing what they're doing? Why were they making the choices that they were making? And so in this episode, Laura dives into that. She is the question lady, and she talks about questions and what she does for people, talks about her mastermind program and how she's helped her clients and friends and herself start to live the life of her dreams by asking the proper questions and getting the answers that they need. So here's, without further ado, my conversation with Laura Steward. Awesome. So we're recording. Laura, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's such a joy to be here. Our conversations that we've had offline are so cool. This is going to be so much fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be a blast. So it's a great way to start the morning. I wanted to kick it off for those people who might not know who you are. Give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you're up to.
Well, I'm a geek. Well, former geek, or yeah. I prefer intellectual badass, actually.
There you go.
I owned a tech services company, a multi-state company for 15 years, doing all the geek stuff, working at Fortune 50 companies and CEOs, right down to some small business entrepreneurs. And what I decided to do with that was, it's not really about putting tech into a company. It's really about making sure that what they're planning on doing aligns with their businesses. And along the way of doing all the technology stuff with my clients, what I realized was often the goals they thought they had were not really their goals. They were somebody else's goals for them. And when I sold my company after 15 years, I decided to write a book, and it's called What Would a Wise Woman Do? Questions to Ask Along the Way. Because all my clients would always say, you ask such really great questions. And I'm like, really? Don't you ask those questions? And what I realized was they don't, because most people ask questions to get the answers they want, not the answers that they need. So the book that I wrote was all about how to learn to ask the questions that you need of the right people, because that's also a big thing, right, David? I mean, you're really great at asking questions with your podcasts and all the stuff that you're doing. And I know you love asking questions.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Most people don't.
Yeah. And well, the problem too, like you hit it on the head. I think the problem that people they need to understand is, it's not necessarily about the questions. It's your purpose in asking them, right? If you're asking questions to verify something that you want verified, it's like when people look at the news, they find what they're looking for, right? They confirm what they're looking for. But with questions, it's about asking those questions, but having that open mind to accepting whatever it is that comes your way, right?
Yeah, it's so true, because most people are not, right? They want just validation, because that means that they're okay where they're at, wherever they may be stuck. And I started to think about, what do I want to say? What have I learned along the way that can help people? And when I sold my tech company, I created a consulting company called Wisdom Learned, where I share wisdom learned in the trenches. So I love interviewing people to understand what they've learned and how to make it easier for people to get off autopilot. Because even like myself, I recently found the other day that I was so stuck on autopilot, I was just going along. I was going along because I caregive for my mom. And I kept thinking, well, I can only do my business one way while I'm caring for my mom. What I realized was, well, wait a minute. Why am I not questioning that thought process? And as a result, I have a broadcast radio show that you know about. That was so much fun, because I get to go to the studio, I get some time out of the house, and I get to interview really cool people from all around the world. But I started doing 100-day masterminds with people, just taking a few people here or there to take them from really what is your true goal off autopilot and looking at things in a different way. And it's so much fun. And
Yeah.
I can do it from my house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so much fun. So it's realizing that process for yourself and
Hmm.
saying, well, wait, did I forget to ask myself a question today?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I'm actually curious. So with these masterminds that you do, and you find these people who are stuck in their life, stuck in their business, and when you start to ask questions, when they start to self-reflect on how they got to the point that they're at, do you see like, are there consistencies in people's, how am I trying to say this? Like, I think of a lot of times, like if you look at our school system, okay, or like growing up, when we were young, we didn't care about asking questions. And if we were wrong, like being wrong was okay. Like there was no consequence. But now I feel like a lot of people don't ask questions because they're afraid they're going to be wrong. So they ask the questions to confirm what they know is right. But when they really need it, like if you're stuck in your business or something to break you out, you don't know how to get there, they're afraid to ask them because somehow being wrong has become a bad thing. Have you noticed any consistencies in you get what I'm trying to get
I
at?
do. I
Okay.
do.
Before I
And
ramble, keep going.
no, that was good. That was a really good ramble. I really wasn't a ramble. It was awesome.
Okay.
One of the things that I see a consistency is it's not just they don't want to be wrong, but they don't want to be right because
Mm,
they've got this gut feeling inside of them that they're sort of going in a direction that isn't the most optimum.
mm,
And if they ask the question, then they're going to be forced to shift.
mm. And
And
that's
that leads to
uncomfortable.
what you were, yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it also means they might have to step backwards.
Mm,
And that's the wrong part that you were talking about. Because if you have to go backwards, that meant that you were on a path that wasn't the most optimum, to put it in that way. It's not that it was wrong, it could have been better,
yeah.
but you might not have known any
Mm,
other way to move forward. And that's a consistency that I've seen with a lot of people. They don't like to go backwards or sideways to go forward.
mm,
They feel that the only way is forward. And I was talking to somebody actually, I had an interview on my radio show yesterday, and it was a pro wrestler turned pastor.
wow. That's a journey.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And he wrote a novel based on his life that turned into a movie that's in the movie theaters now.
Okay.
And we were talking, and I asked him about, the whole failure question, like we were talking. And what he said to me, and I know I've heard it before, but did you ever hear something, even though maybe it's the 10th time, but it's the first time you really heard it?
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly
Okay.
what you mean.
So he said, when you fall, because, we talked about practicing wrestling and everything
Yeah.
and how hard it can be
Oh
when
yeah.
you're all of a sudden you're going up against the Undertaker,
Oh, for
and you're
sure.
5'10", and the Undertaker's what, 6'5" or
Yeah,
something
he's a
like
big
that.
boy.
And this guy was like 200 pounds, Undertaker's 300 and something. And he said, I didn't mind, because what I realized was when I fell, you fall forward.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you fall forward, you're closer to your goal. And I went, wow, that is so cool. So what if when we ask questions and we fall forward, even if it's a fall, we recognize that we're one step closer? Because how often do you actually fall backwards?
Yeah.
You may step backwards, but you don't fall backwards. You've
Yeah.
still fallen and go, ah! And that's a consistent message, is people are afraid to fall
Hmm.
because of the embarrassment, the perceived embarrassment or the shame of failure. Now, let me give you an example. When I owned my tech company, I started out, it ramped up really fantastically. I never lacked for clients. I had massive contracts. And then all of a sudden one day, I realized that things weren't working. The business was starting to crash and burn. I was still had my contracts, but things weren't right. And I had one person resign, and then I let everybody else go. I had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of contracts that needed to be fulfilled, with equipment coming in and network implementations, that all of a sudden I had no engineering staff, none, except for me, because I was the top level engineer in the company, but I had all these other techs that worked for me to implement. Well, I had
Hmm.
all this equipment coming in and no way to fulfill it. Some people would look at that as a massive failure. And I did. The tears were pouring, pouring down.
Yeah, I
And
can
I'm sitting in
imagine.
my office shaking, just shaking. And all of a sudden I said, what am I going to do? I have to call all these clients and tell them I can't service them. They're going to go somewhere else and I'm going to have to eat all of this. And then I took a breath, and a friend of mine happened to call me right when I was taking the breath. And he's like, what's wrong? And I said what it is. And he goes, what do you need right now? What's one thing you need right now to change this for you? And I said, I need a couple of engineers to do the implementation. And he said, when's the implementation? And I said, it's next week. And he looked at his calendar and he said, I can fly out and I can give you 2 weeks. He had his own company.
Wow.
And then he said, who else do you know that can cover this for you? And I went, all right, well, there's some other guys locally. And he said, okay, do you feel trustworthy with them? I said, yeah, I think so, because I had cultivated a relationship with my peers. I never looked at anybody as competition. I always looked at everybody as a peer, and we would share, right? Because sharing what's going right for you, what's going wrong for you helps. And if somebody takes your ideas and runs with them, that means you weren't really good at implementing your own idea, right? That's kind of my philosophy. So I made a couple phone calls and I had all the work covered. I had one guy offer to have all of the phone calls coming to the office routed to an inside number that he had, and he would have one guy designated to answer it with my company name.
Wow.
And he would say, Guardian Angel Computer Services, how will we help you? And they actually logged into my computer systems, opened up tickets, and arranged for their technicians to remotely help them. And then I hired some new people and we're good to go.
Wow.
I could have looked at that as a failure. Remember, I did at first. And then I just said to my clients, look, I had to make some changes in my business. You know how we talk about that when you and I are working together? Well, I recognized I needed to make the change. Every single one of them was totally on board because I came from an honesty and authentic and a trust place. And I said, but I've got it all covered. And a lot of them said, do you need to postpone? We can wait another week if you need to. And I actually had 2 clients say to me, you know, we were having some issues with your text, but we didn't want to say anything to you.
Wow.
And I went, all right, so why did they not feel comfortable telling me that there was an issue? And I retooled the business to create a conversation where I would go in and I would regularly call my clients and ask them what's going well, what's not going well. And my business took off and we hit 7 figures that next year.
Wow. Wow, that's huge. You know, two things that it made me think of. So in that conversation, the 2 big keys were, one, your history, right? So how you were with your clients in the past, how you ran business in the past, your reputation, if you will, with everybody. So that was one thing. So your reputation was obviously positive, and
right.
that held through. And then 2, it was your posture, right? So I love the feeling of posture. It's kind of like I think of people talk about their, what's the word I want to look at? I want to use. Tony Robbins calls them incantations, right?
I got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can say like, I'm going to be successful, or I'm going to be successful, right? So
yes.
it's that posture of how you say it, how you deliver it. When you came to your clients and you said, hey, I had to change my business, they can tell that you're not doing it in like a slimy way or some way to like, ruin your relationship. You had a legit reason to do it, and it's going to be a good thing, and you're going to move forward with it. It's all about how you carry yourself.
Yeah, and what I realized was all they cared about was that they were going to be covered.
Yep.
And I immediately let them know, you're covered.
Yeah.
There was no lag time. Let them know what happened. It felt like forever from my end, right?
Yeah.
But really, it was about 5 hours.
Wow.
In the middle of that, I did all that. Now, a few years before that, I might not have been able to turn that around in 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect. I am so not perfect.
Yeah.
But it's how, like the pro wrestler talked to me about yesterday, is falling forward. and recognizing. And he said, in the wrestling world, you got to get up quick.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
So I've learned, and that's a consistent message with my coaching clients, is that consistency and actually acknowledging it's okay to fail. The ones that get stuck are the ones that their goals really weren't their goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very consistent theme. I know you talk to a lot of people, David. I'm sure there's a consistent theme as well that you see. I see this theme of, I felt I needed to do this. I gave a keynote speech to this large women's group, and this one woman comes up to me after I was talking about autopilot, and I do an exercise where I have them actually write down their goal and then write down their why. I love why. Don't you love why?
I love it.
think
I
it's
love it.
the most beautiful question ever created.
Absolutely.
And yet we're told never ask it because it makes people defensive.
Mm-hmm.
The first why makes somebody defensive. But if you ask it 5 times from the right place.
Yep.
So if you ask yourself why 5 times, you will by the 4th or 5th why unlock the true why versus the surface why.
Yep. That was actually a huge thing for me. I forget who it was that that I was watching and listening to. Actually, believe it or not, I believe it was a guy named Dean Graziosi.
Sure, Dean's awesome.
Dean's an amazing guy. So I was watching him speak, and I was in the audience, and he went through that same exercise. And that's when, I think that's the frustrating part. Like for me, it was frustrating because like, okay, I made the decision. I'm going forward. Like I don't know where I'm going, right? But I want something. And moving forward and trying to figure out what that is, it can be so frustrating because we like that instant gratification. Like,
yes,
like I want to know, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is what I need to do it. But life's a journey. So that was I love that you brought that up because that was for me. That's when I finally unlocked, because I noticed people are like, well, I like to do this and I like to do this, and well, this is important to me. But if you look at all this stuff, you look at like the common denominator, you really distill it down, there's common threads in all of those. And that's that, like you were talking about, that 4 layers deep. That's what you're talking.
Yeah. Well, this woman, she comes up to me after we do this exercise. So you do the goal and the why, and then I have them look at their why and go, so was that goal your goal or somebody else's goal for you? And if it was somebody else's goal for you, what's your true goal? So connect into that. Well, she comes up to me crying afterwards. Mm-hmm. And this often happens when I do keynotes, and I used to take it like it's a bad thing. And then what I realized was it was tears of they had really connected to who they were.
Yeah, they broke through.
They totally broke through. Mm-hmm. So she comes up to me, and she was almost through with her MBA from a very high level school. And she had been in the financial world for years. And during that exercise, she realized she didn't want to be doing what she was doing anymore. She never wanted to be doing what she was doing anymore. She had gotten her law degree because everybody in her family was a lawyer. And she got into the financial realms of everything because that's what they all did. She hated every moment of it. And she wanted to do something completely different. And she connected for the first time there with who she was and what she wanted to do. And she said, I'm going to finish my MBA because she felt it could do much. There was very little time left to finish it. Mm-hmm. She said the training's really good, but then she's going to go do what she really wants to do.
Wow, that's awesome.
And that's the power of questions.
Yeah. And I think what's so powerful is that she was able to head that off when she did. Instead of, the sad part is when you get to, that same person could be 30 years down the road, have a 30-year career, and realize that she hated every minute of it. So the fact that you were able to head that off and help her out, what sounds like if she's finishing up, maybe in the beginning of her career there, I think that's huge. You saved her life, if you will. She's going to hopefully enjoy everything that she does going forward. She's going to enjoy her work. She's going to enjoy her life, and she's going to have more fulfillment in it.
And everything going forward for her and anybody she interacts with is going to be completely changed.
Yeah.
She's going to impact people on a completely different level.
Yeah. So I want you to talk a little bit, maybe if you would, on living for you and not living for somebody else, right? Like the same, if you were a coach and I was your client and I come in and there's so many, if it's, I mean, that's just one example where, oh, my family's all lawyers, so I got to be a lawyer. My family's all doctors, so they want me to go be a doctor, or whatever it is. Or if I, if my parents want me to go get a college degree and get a safe job, but I really have this business idea that I want to go run with. What if I was a client coming in? What are some steps? Is it that goal and the why, or what are some steps that you would bring me through to kind of break me out of that little hole that I was in, right? That little cocoon.
Well, I actually have a free resource that anybody goes up to my website, you can download and you'll get it. And it's this like 4 or 5 workbook exercises that I created. The first one is what we just talked about. It's that goal, understanding where your goal came from, which really unlocks who you are.
Mm.
And once you get to there, the next step becomes, now what do I do with that?
Mm.
And do I have anything I need to clean up internally? Because a lot of emotional turmoil begins to happen after, like I said, she cried because she had, and you had said she had broken through. But for some people, that breaking through can really shut them down.
Mm-hmm.
And when coaching somebody, you have to, I'm not a therapist, right? I do what I do because I've had a lot of experience. And I've gone to therapy myself, so I know some of the techniques.
Yeah.
And I love the learning and I love the lessons. But it's about the first step is saying to yourself, who am I? What do I want? Are my goals or somebody else's? But when you unlock your why, that's the brilliance. Because now you say to yourself, I understand why I had that goal. Now I can see what I really want for me. I may not know how to get there. So who do I need to attract into my life to help me get there? So I'll work with clients to help them see their inner connections as to what they want to be doing with the rest of their life, what they may need to, because I work a lot with business clients. Mm-hmm. I also work a lot with authors, but a lot of entrepreneurial people, both men and women, a lot of women. And I have no idea why, because I was always in male-dominated fields. I mean, when I was in college, I was one of the first women sports information directors. That was how I got the rest of my college scholarship covered.
Oh, wow.
So I traveled all around the country with a Division I baseball team. Yeah, so I'm used to being in very male-dominated fields, and all of a sudden all these women want to hang out with me, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And when you're working with women, it's very much that question you talked about of a lot of women put themselves second. So helping them understand that putting themselves first is critical to making everybody else around them happier as well. Last year, one of my mentors, Wendy Lipton-Dibner, asked me this question. She said, are you living the life you want or the life you've got? Wow. And I had never heard that question asked that way before.
Can you say that one more time?
Isn't it a powerful question?
Yeah.
Are you living the life you want or the life you've got? And
let that one soak in.
Right? It's like I get chills every time I say it out loud. Yeah. And I had always asked it a different way. But when she asked me that last year, I started crying, and it wasn't a good cry. It was a cry of sadness, because what I realized, I was living my life for my mother and my now ex-husband, who had divorced me last year. And it was really stressful for me because I had talked about him in my book from stages, and then things change when you're married, and my mom needed me to really be there for her, and I had put aside my life to avoid some passive-aggressive behavior, to avoid mom being upset because she has some dementia issues that are escalating, and I had no life. And as soon as she asked that question, what I realized was I can't continue to live my life that way. So I began defining what is the life that I want. I'm not fully there yet because I still have things that I'm working out with caring for my mom
Mm-hmm.
but I'm figuring out how to make that work so that internally I can be okay if I need to travel somewhere, and knowing that my mom will be okay with whoever's around to take care of her. And it's a huge thing when you ask that question, to say, what is the life I want?
Mm-hmm.
And also, what is the life I've got? And how do I make those two work together?
Yeah, I think the big difference there is you're you're in control now.
Yeah.
Right? You're not playing defense or blaming somebody else, or you're not playing the victim. You're in control. You own your destiny. Whatever happens, now it's your choice. It's not somebody else's choice that you're just living with.
Yeah. And, going to that story that I told earlier about when I let go everybody in the company, I was able to shift out of that really quickly. But somehow along the way of the last few years, I became this person that wasn't who I was, because I thought I had to do this with my mom. I needed to be the good girl. And so much stress had hit me over and over and over again. My dad dying, my dog dying, my mom getting ill, my ex-husband having open heart surgery, all these other things. And it was just so much, I couldn't deal with it. And it was just easier to go inward and sort of go like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that one question last year completely opened me back to that woman who ran that tech company, who stood up for herself and said, what do I need? What do my clients need? And how do I move forward?
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that people have such a negative connotation when they think about like exactly what you're saying? Like you mentioned, I think like moms, for instance, they're notorious for it, right? They think, well, I got to put my kids are first, my husband's first, everything like, and it's like, if you don't take care of yourself, and I'm obviously not a mother, but if you don't take care of yourself, how can you be there for everybody else? So why do you think that is?
Because, well, as women especially, we're trained to care, to be caretakers, to be caregivers, to make sure everybody's nurtured. It's sort of in our DNA.
Mm,
But the best moms, the best dads, the best business owners, the best people in life are those that say, if I take care of my inner needs, then everything else is going to work out okay. I found that I was getting angry with my mom. I couldn't understand why I would just like spew anger. And then as soon as it came out, there was like a relief, but then there was this massive guilt.
mm,
And somebody said to me, guilt is anger turned inward.
mm,
And I had never heard that phrase before. And what I realized was I felt guilty that I was angry towards my mom, but I was really angry at myself for not meeting my own needs and
mm.
putting them behind. So eventually it just builds up and you blow up,
Yep.
or you get sick, right? You get very sick. How many times have your listeners been through a situation where they didn't want to get out of bed in the morning? They didn't want to go to that job. They dreaded Monday morning. Or a friend phones them and they're like, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have picked up that phone, because you know that that conversation isn't going to be a good one.
Mm,
And you want to just cut that person out of your life, but you can't because they're your friend. But every single time you're around them, they bring you down. They're always a victim. And when I had started researching some stuff for my book, and even before that, I started looking at what are 5 characteristics, 5 questions that people that I feel are successful, that have achieved certain levels, are asking. And one of the questions that people ask are, what do I need to let go?
mm,
Not what I need to add, but what do I need to let go of? Or who do I need to let go of? Now, my divorce was really painful, and it shut me down for over 6 months because of that shame and embarrassment, and I felt like a failure because it was my second marriage. Yet, when I finally came out on the other side, I realized it was a really good thing, because I had become somebody I didn't want to be in order to make things work.
mm,
I realized that he made the choice, and it was a good one
mm-hmm.
for both of us.
Yeah.
what do you need to let go of? And for a large portion of the population, what we need to let go of is that we're not as important as someone else.
Yeah, and those toxic relationships that pull you down. Like I heard it put one way. I was listening to a podcast. I heard it put that a certain way, and it kind of struck me the way he phrased it. But the guy goes, you know what brought me to where I was to where I am today on a level of success in business and in life and my beautiful family is that I divorced a lot of my previous friends.
Yeah, and clients.
And clients, right? And so like you realize anybody that doesn't if you have a relationship that's not serving you, that's not fulfilling you, that's not building you up, but's pulling you down, let it go. And some people, oh, that's selfish. It's selfish not to. You know, it's like I look at it this way. I think what the difference is, you were talking about like what you think are the best mothers and fathers and business owners. I think the best ones are the ones that practice what they preach.
Yeah.
Right? That are examples to their kids who don't have bad relationships, who have surround themselves with positive people. So then when the kids grow up, they're like, oh, those are the kind of friends I'm supposed to have.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the most powerful thing you can do. And if you want to be there for your kids, if you want to be the best mom, the best father, do that, right? Like live for you and show them how to do it.
And if you want to be the best, that doesn't mean that at moments.
Oh, well, no one's perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we all have bad days.
We used to do one of my favorite parts when even now, today, running the business, but when I had a lot of staff, was at least once a year, we would sit down and go through our client list and go, who shouldn't be our client anymore?
Wow.
And why? And we would, and then we got better at it. So if somebody was really toxic throughout the process, we didn't wait for that time of year when we would do this, but it's understanding who are the biggest drains.
Mm-hmm.
And can you shift them or can you not? And if you can't shift them and you can't get rid of them out of your life because maybe they're a family member, so you can't exactly excommunicate them.
Yep. I know what you mean.
They're going to be somewhere in your life at some point in time, but you can put them at a distance.
For sure.
And then change how you react towards them.
Yep, absolutely.
By using some of these questions. Well, how can I not let that get inside and like stab me in the heart or affect my energy? Yeah,
no, I had friends and I had family. It was when I made the same decision 2 years ago. And it was like, I still love you. I want the world for you, but you just are going to take a little bit different role going forward. Instead of talking every day, we're going to talk once a month, maybe. Instead of seeing each other all the time, we're going to see each other every few weeks, whatever it is. You're still there. If you need me, call me. I'm there to support you. But, you just put them at in a different category, if you will. You just kind of change the way that dynamic looks. And it is amazing, like the weight you feel lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah.
If you don't have that negativity, like I actually last spring, this was a big deal for me because I'm a huge football fan, but I canceled my TV. I shut it off. I said, I'm done. Like I've had enough. I literally watched like 2 football games this season, which is a record for me. And
wow.
I used to like Sundays, my whole weekend, football. That's all it would be. But it's amazing how much more energy I have that I'm not listening to the news or I'm not hearing this negative story. Like I go out and people are talking about something. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that happened. Like I have no idea. If it's not on Facebook, I don't know. That's kind of my news. Like if it's important, it's probably on there and I see it and I move on. But when you shed that, it's so hard to describe until you actually live it. Like you experience it yourself, but you just feel like more free and you're more positive and people take notice.
I had a client the other day that was, and I can't exactly say what they were doing, but they said to me, should I do this? And I said to them right back, which they didn't like the answer. Well, if you've already been thinking you should, or asking you the question, should you do this? Then generally the answer is yes, because how many months have you been thinking that you need to make this change? And they're like, a really long time. I said, well, if that's been inside of you for that long, think about right now, this moment. On the other side of that, when you do it, how do you feel? So I like have them kind of get quiet and picture how it feels when they've actually stepped into that thing. And even through the phone, because this wasn't a video call that we did, it was just a phone one. The exhale that came out, and I said, are you okay? They're like, oh, it feels so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
because, as you said, the weight
Oh,
lifted off because their gut, their inner knowing knew what they needed to do, but they didn't want to make that tough call.
yeah. And so it goes back to, I heard this quote, I think it was a couple of years ago, and it's literally helped to kind of drive all my decisions, is that movement goes where energy flows. So
Yes.
I, for the longest time, didn't have any serious relationship. I was told, like, I'm somebody who, well, you understand my whole entrepreneurial mindset. I had all these different ideas. I'm doing all these different things. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. And I was just always on the go. And my parents, my family was always like, David, you're never going to get married. Like it's never going to happen. Like you're all over the place. There's nobody who wants to deal with you. And I started to almost believe that subconsciously. Like we joke about it, but I couldn't find a steady relationship. And then I changed that. I changed my energy around that. And within that year, it was last New Year's, not this New Year's before. I said, that's it. I don't know where, I don't know when, but I'm finding somebody this year. Someone who's waiting for me special. And I found my girlfriend, and it's like, it's been the best thing ever. But it was all because I shifted my energy. So like what you're talking about, that, and all of a sudden you see like colors are brighter. like you're just like, everything's just, you see the glass half full side, if you will. Like, it's just, it's all about perspective. And I don't know. I love it.
When I'm on stage doing keynotes, I do this one bit. If I'm not having to travel, because I haven't figured out how to travel with one of these, I take a frame, an empty picture frame. Have you seen the Harry Potter movies or read the Harry Potter books?
I've dabbled.
You've dabbled. Okay. Yeah. Well, inside in the Harry Potter realm or world, the pictures.
Oh yeah, they move.
And people can actually leave the picture and go into another picture, kind of thing. And it was a great analogy for me because I talk about this, and I would carry an empty picture frame and do this thing where I hold the picture frame as if I'm in it, and the audience is seeing the frame and me in it. And I'm talking about how, well, this is one perspective, how I'm seeing you from here. But now if I turn the picture frame around and look inside the picture, I can see things because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. So what if you were to turn the frame around on your own life and look from the outside in and see what other people are seeing and say, all the people that I've known and have interacted with throughout my life, am I doing things because of their perspectives or because of my own? How can I change it? I realized that a lot of decisions I had made earlier in my life were because my brother died when I was 10 years old. He was 13. And when he died, I wanted to take his place because I thought I should have died instead of him. You're 10 years old. These things happen, right? He had been sick his entire life. So I grew up with a brother who was ill, and I wanted to make it better for him. And he wanted to make it better for me, right? And I knew that, but at the same time, I'm like, I must protect him. And then he died, and I failed. So I felt I needed to take his place. So I made a lot of choices to make sure that I did that. And then one day I woke up and went, but I'm Laura. I'm not Robert. Robert was an amazing human being, but what does Laura want? And it began to shift it. So if all of your listeners, everybody that's hearing us today, flip that frame around and look at yourself and look at everything that was going on and say, how can I shift like you did, David, around relationships? It's all it takes is flipping that frame and looking at your life in a different way.
Yeah. And a lot of it's really, everybody thinks that, and I was in that camp for the longest time, think that in order to be a success, right, you need to do it on your own. Like you need to do it on your own, but to really have the impact, to really make it stick, that change stick and stick with it, you need, like you mentioned, you need that support. It's okay. Like we need the support from other people, bounce ideas off. When we have those bad days, have some people to lean on. And that goes down to, and I love what you're doing with these masterminds. And so my question to you is, so you mentioned these 100-day masterminds. And I was just wondering if you'd be willing to, for the people listening, what does one of those look like? Is there a kind of a certain, for the 100 days, kind of the I don't know, not modules, but like a certain schedule that you follow as far as what you hit in different ones? Or is it kind of every week, what do people have going on? You attack it as you go? Or what do those masterminds look like?
Well, what I'm doing now is one-on-one 100-day masterminds,
Oh,
but I'm being asked by a number of people to do sort of a group 100-day mastermind. So I'm beginning to develop that course material.
okay.
What it's all about is the first thing that we do in the 100 days. And I love 100 days. Everybody goes, oh, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 21 days, you can make anything happen. Presidents, everybody looks at the first 100 days of a presidential candidacy in the United States and throughout the world. Corporations, when they are making a major shift in a way of doing business, they look at the first 100 days of the implementation, because 90 days isn't enough. 100 days is truly, amongst the most successful people, the way that you can make something truly happen. We're not talking a flash in the pan. If you can move something along a curve for 100 days and keep moving it forward, more than likely you will know where you need to make a shift, if you need to make a shift, or if you're heading in the right direction for 100 days. So what we do during the mastermind, the first thing that we do is that goal exercise.
Okay.
And everybody is welcome to go up to the website and download.
And I'll link all that up in the show.
Okay, great. Perfect. So, because I want people to have the resources. I'm not about, it's not all about the money. It's about making an impact and helping people move forward. So I want you to have whatever people need. So we do the goal exercise and really begin to understand what is the true goal that you want to work towards in the 100 days. Then we meet one-on-one once a week. And it's through Skype, or if somebody's local in Florida, you can actually hang out with me in person. And once a week, we realign that goal. We set your action plan. So by the end of the second week, you literally have your plan in place to achieve the goal. Connect you with whatever resources you need, what people you need. So I have this great Rolodex of people that I'm either one or two people away from, and I'll make a phone call and go, hey, somebody needs a consult. Can you help them? Like if so, just a kind of a goofy one, but a huge one. If you were to talk to somebody about how you stopped TV and the thought processes that went through that and how your life changed, that's huge.
Yeah.
So I may want to add you just for that one thing. I mean, other things I want to refer people to you for.
If you ever need me, I'm yours.
Okay, cool. So that's really huge. But you think it's a small thing. But how did your life change from this small decision to this with that one choice?
And especially if you're playing the long game, right?
Right.
Yeah, that little incremental change. I actually want to kind of write. I'm thinking about writing an ebook or a short book or something about this analogy. But you think about when you're driving down the highway, okay? You're driving down the highway and you can go probably 5 over, okay?
Right.
And you're like, well, I might be able to get away with 7 over. So 2 miles an hour. Well, if I'm only on the highway for 20 minutes, that extra 2 miles an hour, not that big of a change in the scope of the scheme of things, right? You're going to get to your destination about the same time.
Yeah.
If you're going to be on the road for 12 hours, now there's a little bit of difference there, right? So it's like these small changes. If you're only going to do them for the weekend or for the next year, yeah, you're going to look back and be like, yeah, not a whole lot of change there. But if you're looking at it as you're going to compound those changes, that little change, maybe another one, but the rest of your life, and then you look back, change is going to be huge.
There's a great book called The Slight Edge.
Slight Edge. I'll link that up too. I haven't read that one.
And this is a really sad part. I don't remember the main author, but the co-author is a friend of mine, John David Mann. He also wrote, along with Bob Berg, The Go-Giver.
Oh, love it.
Right. So John David Mann is one of my favorite writers of all time. And when he and I email back and forth, I look forward when I see his name in my inbox, because the way he crafts even an email is just like so amazing. So the book's called The Slight Edge, and it talks about that. And my 100-day masterminds are all about that. I want people to be moving forward, even if it's a slight edge. But we're talking long game. That's why I don't do 10-day masterminds or 30-day. We're doing this for 100 days because I want you to see how those incremental changes make a difference. And it may be a personal thing somebody's trying to change. I'm not a personal trainer, but maybe part of it is they're trying to get more health so they can take their business to the next level. I'll connect them up to some people that can help them with their health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're working on a business goal, something surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
That's really their true stop. And we have to kind of sideline off to that. So what we're doing is we're setting the goals, we're understanding all the obstacles that are perceived to achieving that goal. And we'll look at, are they really true? If they are, we'll say, how do we get around that? Or do we even care about that obstacle? Is there another way? We set their plan, we set all of the steps they need to take, and I hold them to that throughout the 100 days. By the end of the 100 days, people are going leaps and bounds beyond wherever they need it. If they want to stay working with me beyond that, fine, but it should be another goal that we're working towards. I don't believe that you need to stay with a mentor forever.
Yeah, and mentors change, right?
They change.
Because your goals change.
Yeah. So for me, the 100-day masterminds are about getting people to really realize who they are, what their goals are, why their goals are their goals, and how they can achieve them. What do they need in their life? What do they need to let go of? And I'm actually going to be starting Questioning Mastery mentoring, which will be a monthly for people that, aren't ready for like that really deep, intensive 100 days, because I'll tell you, it gets intense.
Yeah, for sure.
Every week.
Yeah.
And you can email me. They email me constantly. So I respond to all emails within 24 hours. It's unlimited access. The people have this phone number so they can text me. I am all in for these people. So I only accept a limited number of people into them because it takes a lot of effort on my part, and I love it. And I have breakthroughs. Don't you find that when you talk to somebody, you have your own breakthroughs?
Yeah. So I just need to stop right now, and I want people to realize, notice everything that Laura just talked about in the last couple of minutes, all the mastermind stuff, all this coaching. You can tell, and it put a smile on my face. It has nothing to do with you, right? Like you're doing it. Everything that you do, it's not about the money. It's about that excitement. And I already know that excitement that you get when your clients have that breakthrough and move on. Like you could have easily say, oh, no, you need a mentor, one mentor forever, and just stick with me and all this. But it's not about you. It's all about them. And those are the kind of people that, for those listening, when you find people like Laura, that mentality, that energy that they give, hitch your wagon up to that, please. Like there's so many people out there, and there's bad apples in every industry, and I don't want to go negative with it. But like when you find a good person, like you want to stick with them, because Laura said, if your goals change, guess what? Whoever she connects you with is going to be a good person. She's not going to send you to a bad person. So I just want to make that very, very clear. So
thank you so much. That really means the world to me. It really does. I just want to make a difference for people.
Yeah, and unfortunately there's a lot of people out there who it's all about the dollar. How much money can I make? How much money can I charge for a coaching program? And unfortunately, those people, guess what? You're not going to have those dedicated clients. You're probably not going to be around all that long, because that's just not, when you talk about playing the long game, that's how you play the short game.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure I probably totally ruined your train of thought, and you maybe don't know where you're at, but you can continue where you were. I just want to make sure and make an abrupt stop and reiterate everything that I just saw, so you can continue.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And, along those same lines, what I realized is not everybody at whatever point they're at can do 100-day. They just don't have, and I don't make it expensive at all, but it is a massive commitment, and people may not be ready there. So I'm just about to launch a monthly thing where it's once a month you call, and I'm calling it the Questioning Mastery mentoring. Because what I want people to get is sometimes a subtle shift in the question you ask yourself. And I'll give you an example going back to my first marriage. When we went into marriage counseling, marriage ended after like 4 months, but we went to counseling. He had a nervous breakdown and some other stuff. In my opinion, he had like a nervous breakdown, okay? And we go into counseling, and the counselor asked me, why did you want to get married? And I looked at him like he had 3 heads. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why did I want to get married? And he said, well, what question were you asking yourself when he proposed? I said, well, the only question I asked myself was, do I want to marry him? Do you see the difference? Do I want to marry him versus why do I want to get married?
Mm.
It's a kind of a subtle differential, but in the why do I want to get married, what I realized was I want to get married because I was almost 30 the first time. I had achieved massive business success. I owned my own home. I was involved in the community because I do a lot of philanthropic work as well, because that's always been a part of who I am. I give a lot of my time and resources to help nonprofits that I believe in move forward. And I went, oh my gosh, I wanted to get married because I hadn't checked that box.
Mm.
So the questioning mastery stuff that I'm creating now is to help people so we get on the call, and I'll do little teachings each time, but then they get access to me for that call.
Mm.
And they can say, here's what's going on in my life, here's what I'm asking, and I can help them shift that question, learn a new question, and they can go off for that month and see where they go from. Because I think it's important. Not everybody has had the opportunities perhaps that I've had, or David, that you've had, and been around the people. Randy Gage, who has a new book out called Mad Genius, which I haven't had a chance to read yet, but he has some amazing books there, and it's all about perspective shifting. That's
Mm.
why I love him. He says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need a new room.
Yeah. Yeah. Heard that so
Yeah.
many times. Yeah.
And I was at a Bob Berg event. Bob's a dear friend of mine. He gives the best hugs, by the way. And I was at an event of his with John Maxwell, Randy Gage, Les Brown, Paul Martinelli, like these amazing, amazing people right after I sold my company and couldn't decide what I was going to do. He's like, Laura, come down, you know? And I heard that and I realized I didn't have enough people that challenged me in my room.
Yeah.
And the last couple years, I went back to that situation where I didn't have enough of those people. Everybody around me was sort of stuck, which made me even more stuck because I didn't have enough people sort of going like this to me. And I started shifting it, and that's why I wanted to create these 100-day mastery programs, masterminds, and then this newer questioning mastery was, I want you to be around people that are willing to challenge you.
Yeah.
And then create some group programs where you can have these people. I think we should do one, David. We should do like a
I
group
love it.
thing and have people come in on that call, and just like maybe once a month, once a quarter or something, we do something where we can get them connected to that that group that lifts them.
Yeah, no, I love it. As I say, I had a funny story. So I had heard that one of the first times I heard that quote about the smartest man, the smartest person in the room. I was in a room with some of my friends, and I had said that quote. My one buddy gets up, he goes, "Well, gotta go find a new room." It was hilarious. But no, I love that idea because it's so. If you don't have that accountability, right? Like somebody to check in with, or somebody to bounce that mastermind, that tug back and forth. It's so easy just to go to the next week.
Yeah.
You know, just maybe I'll worry about it next week, and then next week. And hey, we all know, it seems like every year I get older, the years go by faster and faster, but it's like all of a sudden you can keep doing that, and before you know it, years go by.
Yeah.
And there's nothing for me, because I want people to live so bad. There's nothing more sad for me than to see somebody all of a sudden wake up 10 years later. Like I want to catch them right in the beginning.
Yeah.
I want them to have that 10 years to love their life and to live it to the fullest. And so, yeah, I love what you're doing. Anything I can do to support you, be a part of it, whatever. Hey, I love it. I love it.
I just had this thought that I'd like to offer to all your listeners, and I'll send it over to you so you can put it up, or I can set up a special page. I teach I do a keynote and/or workshop version of this. It's called Vision to Action Mentoring, and I had been asked to do it as a 2-part keynote for this one group, and then it turned into a workshop. I have these workshops and a workbook that I had created for them.
Okay.
That I'd be happy to give to your listeners if they want, and it includes daily, weekly, and monthly planner sheets.
Awesome. That's awesome.
It
Cool.
may not make 100% out of context if you didn't listen to
Yeah.
the whole program, but I know that the daily, weekly, monthly planners and this kind of workbook I put together for them, I think it would be, if you're happy to take that, I'd love to give that to
Absolutely.
listeners as an extra thing because it's so important. And I use it in the 100-day masterminds. It was sort of the start of the thought process of this, was this vision to action idea.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, all that stuff. I'll make sure it'll all be in the show notes for this episode. So no, that'll be
Great.
incredible. It's one of those things like what I love is I love to gather all these different resources because, you can have, say, 10 people go and however many, what number you want to say, but say 10 people go, maybe one person uses it, right? Or a couple of people actually use it, but that's worth it, right? Like,
It is.
It's for those people that actually connect. It's kind of like when you had mentioned that you had heard things a bunch of different times, but all of a sudden, for some reason, one time it hit you like a freight train. It's all about where you're at, right? So maybe for somebody right now that resource hits them right when they need it. So no, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely have that all in the show notes.
Les Brown once said to me, he said, there can be 1,000 voices saying the exact same thing. All it takes is that one person at the right moment to the right person to say that unlocks a life.
Wow.
And that's what it's all about. And that's the beauty of your show. That's the beauty of you and the things you're doing, is you're giving voice. And somebody at the right moment, at the right time, will hear that. I did a book signing once, David. One person showed up. I'm not used to book signings with one person.
Yeah.
One person showed up. I could have said, I'm not going to stay. You know what? Instead, I had one-on-one time with that one person. That person now has 3 books that they've written because of what we talked about, and they are changing their life. And I read the books. They're amazing. I could not put them down. They were fiction books, historical fiction books. And I ended up giving the guy some free coaching and talking about a bunch of stuff, and his stuff is great. And I got transformed, but beyond that, he got transformed. I didn't know it at the time. I could have just said, well, only one person showed up. Why should I be here? It's that one person, that each person in front of you could be shifted by what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody listening to the show to take every person you encounter as you have a chance to make a difference for them in their life by being who you are and in being present in that moment.
Oh, that's powerful. Yeah, I think that's a great way to close the show out, to bring it all together. It's been awesome. I appreciate you and everything that you do for people. You're an amazing person. I love that Wendy's the one that introduced us, and I am eternally grateful that she did. So I want to thank you again for taking the time. Any information that Laura shared with us will be in the show notes, so you guys can find it, contact it, all that stuff. You want to hook up with her, connect with her on. I'm sure you have all the different social medias or anything that you have. We'll get it all linked up there so you can connect with Laura. Like I said, she's one of the good ones. You want to make sure.
Thank you. So thank you. For me, it's really all about the right questions can change your life. So what are you asking?
Yeah. For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
How about that? What did you guys think about that episode? I loved it. And hopefully it made you guys think. Hopefully you sat there and thought, man, am I asking the right questions? Chances are, maybe if you're not, it's probably because we don't want to know the answers, right? If we know that the answer is going to be something that we're wrong, or we've got to take a sideways move, or maybe we got to take a step backwards. To us, it's just easier to forget about it, to let it go, than to address the problem. And so hopefully after this episode, you guys are starting to question, why are you doing what you're doing? You're starting to try to ask yourselves questions maybe in a different way, and not necessarily looking for the answers that you want, but looking for the answers that you need. So once again, I want to thank Laura for being a guest on the show, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this message. If you haven't done so already, please head over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't already, go head over to lifestyleprojectshow.com. There you find in the show notes, you will find all the resources that Laura and I may have mentioned during the show. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Reach out to me. So thank you once again, and we will see you on the next episode.
Don't hold back. I see so many beginner speakers kind of hold back, giving them really good information. Like, well, if I give them the good information, they're not going to come back to me. No, you got to think of it this way. Give them the gold. So again, you're developing that rapport, your service to the audience. And not only that, you make the audience think, oh my gosh, I just spent 30 minutes with this person. If I got this for them, imagine if I sign up for their service, if I invest in their product, imagine what I'm going to get. And that's what you're going